Like this, polling stations should have been open for at least 3 hours or so as the fresh presidential poll takes place as ordered by the Supreme Court of Kenya. That is, if nothing changes between today and then, that could lead to its postponement. But what will that election look like? We'll discuss that with my panel in studio in the course of this broadcast. Meanwhile, with 6 days to that election, IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati has called for a consultative forum with all the presidential candidates with the intention of finding a way to hold free, fair and credible elections, and of course transparent and verifiable as well. Will these candidates show up? Can consultation yield fruit in such little time? I'll be holding this key discussion with my panel in studio as well. And finally, with yesterday's event still fresh in our minds, especially in regards to the IEBC, we ask you that 12 billion shilling question: can this IEBC, as currently constituted, conduct free, fair, credible, verifiable and transparent elections that are acceptable by all? Talk to us. Our SMS line is 22422. Talk to us on social media. The hashtag is Citizen Extra. Let me repeat that question one more time. With yesterday's events still in mind, especially in regards to the IEBC, the resignation of Dr. Roslyn Akombe, and that very telling statement by the chairperson Wafula Chebukati, do you think the IEBC can still, as currently constituted, hold an election that is free, fair, credible, verifiable and transparent? We value your feedback, and I'll be reading your SMSs throughout the course of this broadcast. Shortly, I'll be introducing my guests in studio, but before that, let's take a look at what's happening across the country. We are live in Kisumu County and Nyeri County as well, where we'll be getting updates from our correspondents there. Let's start with Kisumu County, where Laura Otieno is on standby. Laura, lots that's been happening in Kisumu County over the last couple of days. Can you give us an update on the latest there? We want to hear from you about the situation with training for returning and deputy returning officers that has been interrupted over the last couple of days. Any updates in regard to that, and of course the political situation there as well? Laura, give us that update, please.
Yes, a very good morning to you. Higa coming to you live from county number 042, that is the lakeside city of Kisumu. And here we have had quite such some kind of normalcy resuming here in Kisumu town, especially after the NASA mass action was suspended. We have seen quite businesses are going back to normal, but of course, in light with the IEBC happenings here in Kisumu town yesterday, an IEBC training meeting was disrupted with angry youth led by Kisumu Senator Fred Outa. And of course, we were speaking to the police yesterday, who had told us that they'll be pursuing the suspect, with the senator being the lead suspect in that circle, and he was saying that he's going to try and bring him to book. Of course, he also revealed to us that concerning such kinds of disruptions, 10 people were arrested in Awasi, where the day before yesterday, such an IEBC meeting of such nature was also disrupted, and so he confirmed to us that 10 people were arrested. But concerning yesterday's disruption, he's yet to give a comprehensive statement on whether he indeed made the arrest or not. And of course, Wahiga, some of the matters arising from the NASA mass action: an 18-year-old boy who was slain on Monday by police, of course shot under unclear circumstances. We do understand that a contingent of NASA leaders are expected to be making their way to the boy's family, basically to condole with the family and have maybe a chit chat with them. And yesterday we had the Kisumu Governor Anyang' Nyong'o visiting that family, and one of the things he said is that it's going to ensure that 18-year-old Michael Lokos, who was a Form 4 student at Vihiga Boys, receives a befitting burial. And so we understand that today a section of the NASA leaders are expected to be visiting the boys' family, and of course the 2-year-old girl who was hit by a stray bullet on the arm. We also understand that they'll be making their way to that place. But basically, in terms of business, it's actually a typical week here in Kisumu. Traders are trying to trying to make up for the losses that they incurred, of course, since the mass action started. And in a nutshell, that is all that's going down. The political atmosphere is a little reluctant, of course. We are seeing people moving around from the county government, basically trying to put up flags in various places of town. Of course, you know, today, not today, but tomorrow, we expect Mashuja Day celebration, so they're moving around in preparation for that. But of course, you know, Raila Odinga had said that tomorrow they'll be commemorating the slain victims since that have lost their lives, of course, since after the declaration of the presidential vote. of course, we'll be waiting to see what will be going down tomorrow in regards to that, whether the county government will be celebrating Mashujaa Day or it will be going according to what Raila Odinga had said, Wahiga.
Laura, of course, yesterday a very eventful day on the political front, especially in regards to the IEBC. How did Kisumu residents react? Firstly, to the resignation by Dr. Akombe, and secondly, to that very telling statement or press conference or press briefing by the chairperson. What was the reaction of some of the Kisumu residents?
Well, Wahiga, you know, this area actually being the turf, or rather the home ground of Raila Odinga, they received Akombe's resignation very warmly, and of course, some of the issues that the leaders were raising yesterday at the disruption was that Dr. Akombe has resigned, and therefore she says that the commission cannot hold free, fair and credible elections, and therefore that they say that is one of the reasons why they were disrupting that meeting, that it's a confirmation that IEBC cannot deliver in that the repeat presidential poll, and therefore they were very excited, very enthusiastic. Of course, they're also calling upon Wafula Chebukati to follow suit in Akombe's steps and basically just step down. But that resignation was received very warmly here in Kisumu County, and of course, you know, the mass action that has been going on has been very vocal and had a very huge turnout here in Kisumu County. And what Akombe did is somewhat what NASA was pushing for. Therefore, that resignation was received very warmly, and they said, actually, Wahiga, the governor, the deputy governor, and a section of local leaders had said that they will not allow the presidential poll to go down in this area. So basically, we don't know how that is going to be. We have the regional commissioner saying that is going to ensure that IEBC has the proper security it requires to carry out its constitutional mandate. Local leaders saying that they're going to tell people to boycott the October 26th repeat poll, and that is also what the people are saying. So it's definitely a wait-and-see game to see how things will be going down, of course, tomorrow and, of course, on the 26th of October.
Thank you, Laura Otieno, for that update. I know there's an interview that you're chasing for us, and I know we will be talking to you shortly even about other matters. Laura Otieno reporting live from Kisumu City, Kisumu County, just giving us the latest there with 6 days and counting to the October 26th poll. Let's now cross over to Nyeri County, where Martin Munene is on standby, also posing the same question to him. A very busy day yesterday on the political front, especially in regards to IEBC, the resignation of Dr. Akombe and the statement by IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati. Martin, what has been the reaction of residents of Nyeri in regards to a lot of the events that happened yesterday?
Okay, a very good morning to you, Wahiga Maura. And like you said, yesterday was a very eventful day on the political scene. And residents of Nyeri County, they feel that no matter what happens, no matter how many changes happen, the elections must go on as scheduled. I must say that a lot of residents here are complaining that their businesses are not doing well, and also considering that a lot of residents in Nyeri County are farmers, and their produce is mostly taken to Nairobi. They're saying that they're not seeing a lot of people come to Nyeri County to pick produce to take to Nairobi, and therefore they're saying that there must be an election. And also on the resignation by Roslyn Akombe, yesterday we saw that two members of parliament from this area, that is the Kieni legislator and his Madera counterpart, Kanini Kega and Rigathi Gachagua, saying that the resignation by Akombe is not consequential in any way, saying that as leaders in Nyeri County, it doesn't matter if Akombe resigns. In fact, they say that even if the chairman Wafula Chebukati himself goes ahead and resigns, they will still be calling for elections, saying that as the constitution as it is requires about 5 commissioners, and they have made changes in the election law to ensure that even if another commissioner resigns, when we're left with only 3 commissioners, the elections can still go on, and according to them, the elections will still be credible. And also, I must say, yesterday we saw a group of women representatives from across Mount Kenya coming in Nyeri County to mobilize women and telling them that they should go to their homes and to their villages and give the message that the elections is still on and the elections will still be credible and fair. And that is generally how people feel in this county, that as it is, the elections will be, or will of course happen but I have a feeling that mostly people here want the election to happen, and the issue of credibility is not a major factor to them. I think a lot of people saying that they're tired of this whole electioneering period in the campaign season, especially because it's hurting them economically, and therefore they're saying they want this thing to be done with, and so that they can go back to their normal lives.
Thank you, Martin, for just giving us a summary of the views of Nyeri residents affected by, of course, the difficult business environment, bearing in mind we're very unique political times, and of course their reaction as well to the events that occurred at the IEBC yesterday as well. From Nyeri County, we cross over now to Uasin Gishu, Eldoret, to be specific, where John Wanyama is on standby, also giving us a summary of the response by residents of that city to the news that Dr. Akombe has resigned from the IEBC, has left the country, and of course that statement by Wafula Chebukati that, listen, political players, if we don't sit down and agree on this, then we're going to have a problem. John Wanyama, what is the latest from Uasin Gishu County? What are residents of Eldoret feeling about the current political dispensation?
A very good morning to you, Wahiga Maura, back there in studio in Nairobi, and here in Uasin Gishu County. Clearly, as you said, yesterday several things happened in this country, where we saw one of the commissioners from IEBC, Dr. Akombe, resigning from the commission, and later on we also saw the IEBC chair, Wafula Chebukati, coming to address the nation. But people here, they have mixed reaction about these things, because most of them are saying, consulting themselves, saying that Akombe's resigning from the commission does not have much that it can maybe influence the commission not to having election on 26th of this month. Wahiga, what I can just clearly put my finger on is that residents in Uasin Gishu County and the entire North Rift, they are ready for this election. And as we have this morning, I was talking to IEBC officials here in Uasin Gishu, is that they are through with their training for their officials in Uasin Gishu, and we are expecting tomorrow to see these officials who have been trained to see whether they are going to have to take an oath tomorrow, so that they can maybe during election they can stick to the ethics of the IEBC and the commission. So Waura, especially here in Uasin Gishu, again, whatever I can inform you is that residents are ready for this election, but there are those people who are not having that spirit of election spirit mood as we normally have for general elections in this country and in this region. So most people here are relaxed, most of people are doing their businesses, they are going on as usual, and as you can see even behind me, I'm alongside the Uganda highway. The traffic is well moving on, and people are just waiting anxiously for this date. For them, they don't know whether this election will have to come on 26th, but their hope and their prayer, Maura, is that this election come so that they can do with it and they can continue with businesses as normal and as usual. Because today, the economy of the county and the entire country is suffocating. People are not having money circulation within people. There is no money. So actually, most of people, especially citizens, apart from what we are witnessing in other areas like Nairobi and Kisumu, people in Uasin Gishu are ready to go for this election like yesterday. Maura.
Indeed, like yesterday. Thank you, John Wanyama, for that update. And of course, many wondering next week at a time like this, on Thursday the 26th, what will be happening in the country. That is the 12 billion shilling question. Well, we've heard from our correspondents on the ground, different parts of the country. We'll also be getting an update from Mombasa, I believe. Should we get a chance to do so as well, just to know what residents there feel about the current political dispensation. But now let's listen a little bit to what our political leaders had to say yesterday about where we are as a country. They reacted even as they were in different parts of the country. NASA was at the historic Kamkunji grounds, while Jubilee were in Nanyuki, Kabarnet, and other parts of the country, of that part of the country as well. This is what they had to say about our current political space.
Hatugomii uchaguzi. Tulisema hakutakuweko na uchaguzi tarehe 26 Oktoba. Tulisema tukusema. We say that on the 26th of October there will be no elections.
Cannot stop a democratic process.
It is your right to say that you are not standing, and nobody will deny you that right. But you have no right to deny those who are preparing our nation for an election to make their preparations in order to allow those of us who wish to participate in an election to do so without fear, without intimidation.
Chebukati has also admitted that it is impossible to conduct a free and fair election. Then what Uhuru is telling us will happen on 26th shall be an opinion poll of Jubilee supporters.
That vote is unstoppable. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how much you demonstrate. It doesn't matter how many conditions you give. It doesn't matter how many resignations. We are ready, and Kenya is ready for election on the 26th, because Kenya cannot be held hostage by interests and by forces that do not want this country to succeed.
Indeed, Kenyans are keenly following the latest political developments. So many SMSs have come in this morning on 22422. Clearly, everyone just waiting to see what will happen in the nation. These are some of your feelings regarding what happened yesterday and whether IEBC, as currently constituted, can hold free, fair, credible, verifiable, and acceptable polls. Let me read some of your SMSs. Celestine in Nairobi says, "Hi, IEBC cannot carry a free, fair, and credible election. Chebukati himself said so. It is clear things will be tough after 26th. They are not ready for it. Neither do Kenyans know what it is about. People are just not being realistic." Another person here, you don't give us your name, but say, "Morning Wahiga, whatever we swept under the carpet between 2007 and 2016 is coming to the surface. The sooner we deal with it, the better. If not in 2020, if not, then in 2022, nothing will have changed." Another person here, again, you don't give us your name, but you say, "Good morning. As a Jubilee diehard, I have been challenged by the resignation of Dr. Akombe. It will have been very unfortunate if we go to the ballot, or it will not be right if we go to the ballot. Hence, it's clear that IEBC cannot deliver a credible election. Let us be calm. Give Chebukati appropriate time to set the voting field, or to make the voting field neutral. Kenyan lives matter, and peace is all we want as a country." And Sally from Gilgil says, "Morning, no, it will not. I guess the election will not be credible and cannot. There must be minimum changes in order to have a credible election. There is no goodwill. She feels that there is no goodwill from the government, and that is her response in regard to that." So a lot of you feeling that you are concerned about the upcoming polls, which should actually be taking place next week Thursday at a time like this. Let me now introduce my guests in studio and give each of them a chance to respond to what they've heard from the ground, from our leaders, and of course from those of you who've responded to us on 22422. I'm glad to have Jemima Kelly, an advocate. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And Dr. Alutalala Mukhwana, an advocate to the High Court as well. Welcome to the program as well. I hope I have gotten your name correct.
You have tried this time.
I'm getting closer and closer, Doctor. Indeed. Thank you. Let me first give you each a chance to make opening statements, a minute each. You've heard what Kenyans have had to say on the ground, our leaders, and also via SMS. But what is your take?
Thank you, Maura. It is really scary and disturbing what we have had in the past few days. The resignation of Dr. Akombe, the commissioner, who I assumed resigned formally, because we have just seen from the press and she did outside the country. But nevertheless, it is clear she has resigned. Very disturbing statement she issued, to the effect that the commission is partisan. The commissioners have taken sides. The senior management of the secretariat has taken sides. And yesterday, our chairman, Chebukati, also issued a statement to almost the same lines. And what is most disturbing to me as a constitutional lawyer is the fact that he said they are not capable of holding a credible election. To my mind, I see no reason why we should have that election on 26th.
That's your take?
Yes.
Okay.
If the chairman himself, who is the referee of the presidential elections, says he has no capacity to hold a credible election, we have no business, because that will be in violation of our constitution, which calls for credible elections, Article 81, under which again the Supreme Court nullified the election. So if the chairman says they have no capacity to hold credible elections. If he says the infighting between the commissioners themselves has made it impossible for him to make important decisions, then we have no business having that commission. In my mind, we are not ready for 26 elections, and even if we do that, if we were to hold those elections, those would be just sham elections.
As a legal mind, if the chairperson, and there have been worries that yesterday he almost resigned. In fact, at some point his statement looked like he was just about to announce his resignation. Then he pulled back. If that was to happen, how would the country proceed forward from a legal perspective? Because there's been a lot of worry that come November 1st, there will be a call for a caretaker government. You know, some could call for the president that is no longer constitutionally allowed to hold that seat, etc. You know, how would you interpret what you're proposing? That no election, then, so how do we operate as a country?
Of course, if we do not have an election, would be guided by Article 134, that the president continues to enjoy the temporary powers which he has under 134, because it's very clear, it says until a new president is sworn in. So my interpretation of that constitution is that President Uhuru Kenyatta continues to sit until we hold fresh elections. And
whenever that will be.
Yeah, of course, it's assumed to be like within 90 days, which is the reasonable time. And it makes common sense, unless we have been bewitched as a country. If the referee says the elections cannot be credible, why on earth would we spend 12 billion on a sham elections? Why would we do that?
Dr. Mtanala, have we been bewitched as a nation?
Thanks, Wahiga. I think I'll go a little bit behind, because you asked us for introductory remarks. And I'm very consoled by the way you began. The comments that you received, there is one Kenyan who has not disclosed his or her name, but he says, if I paraphrase right, that although I am a Jubilee diehard, with the resignation of that commissioner, I am convinced to think, I may not get it right, I'm convinced to think that the IEBC is not in a position to conduct these elections. Let's give Chebukati time, cool time, so that he can organize better elections. Wahiga, that is very consoling. Not because of what he's suggesting, but because of the introductory remarks in that sentence. That he is a Jubilee diehard, but he chooses to see sense in the events developing in front of his eyes or her eyes. And he says, yes, I'm a Jubilee diehard, but from what has happened, I think I'm changing my mind. How I wish that revelation will dawn on the political leadership of this country. Wahiga, all along, I have maintained that both sides of the divide are contributing to this problem, and that a solution will not come legally but politically. What we are now faced with, I want to agree to a certain extent with my learned counsel here, is that after Dr. Akombe's resignation, my brother, if there was any doubt in town that there was a problem in IEBC, is the time that doubt should be cleared. I have said time and again that what is in IEBC is not independence. IEBC has been held hostage by the political interests. And I say that is not only Jubilee, but equally NASA. However, with the development now, it appears that the Jubilee side of the hostage takers seems to be having an upper hand, if what Akombe is saying is anything to go by. Akombe says, and you have no reason to doubt her on this one because it's under her own signature, that there is a section of commissioners who really come in with a fixed mind on what to vote on. And if you read, there is a memo which I've requested that to bring, the memo on the 9th of October, which was not revealed to the country until yesterday.
That's right.
Dr. Akombe actually wrote to Chebukati, and one of the things she's complaining is that although there is an election management team that has been put in place to bypass the problems with the secretariat and so forth, the same secretariat actually has put roadblocks in the way of that particular management team. That, then she says that what the secretariat is doing, and she mentions Chiloba, is that whereas the management team agreed that all issues will be discussed among the team first and then brought to the plenary where there are the commissioners and the CEO. What the Secretariat is doing, that it has hijacked those issues from the team and they rush them to the plenary. That could only give this linkage. That the reason why Chiloba and the Secretariat is doing that is because that is where their compatriots are. For lack of a better word, the voting machine, again for lack of a better word, the voting machine of the commissioners. And they have said they are 4. If you listen to NASA, they have also said that they are 4. Yes. So, Wahiga, if there was any doubt that this election should not go on, that doubt should have been cleared yesterday. However, our politicians being politicians and using every means in the book to achieve their objectives have quickly again come with explanations about Akombe and her decision. They're now saying she's a dual citizen, therefore she had no loyalty to this country, yet the same politicians vetted her. A big argument in talk shows last night. Precisely, and you could see the tempers there.
So when you hear the president and his deputy saying resignation or no resignation, elections must happen next week, what do you feel about that particular statement?
They are just doing what they vowed to do from the beginning, that no obstacle will be huge enough in their way to achieve what they want. And Wahiga, in the morning, while listening to Michael Gitonga's program, The Morning Express, there is a caller from Naivasha who again made a remark, and I would like, if you allow me to paraphrase it. This caller said, it was Michael actually from Naivasha, he said that what we are having is that President Uhuru is held hostage, and that he is held hostage by designs for 2022. That what is now at play is 2022 politics. That if things do not go the way that the Jubilee section has planned, then the risk is 2022. So that caller was implying that the Deputy President and his interests are actually the one who have held Jubilee captive. We were expecting David Murathe, Jubilee Vice Chairperson. I really wish he was here, because I think he would have been able to respond to that. We were expecting also Norman Magaya, CEO NASA, all of them gone into meetings. Those are the kind of messages we are receiving right now. I wish in many ways I was able to get cameras into those different meetings just to understand what they are talking about. We were also expecting Emmanuel Zai, running mate of Ekuru Okot, who has also told us that he's had to go in for an urgent meeting. So it seems everyone is in a meeting right now, and we can only wonder what they are talking about. Of course, we assume that it has a little bit to do with the consultative meeting called by IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati that is set to take place at 2:30 p.m. today, and the current state of the nation as well. So a lot of the discussion that we'll have in studio, unfortunately, we do not have a representative from Jubilee, NASA, or Third Way, who had all been invited, but they have all informed us this morning that they all have had to attend some meetings. But nevertheless, we have two lawyers here who will help us take a look at some of the legal issues between today and next week's election, and of course what will happen, what could happen after that. Let's now listen in just a little bit and review what happened yesterday, and let's listen to a bit about what Dr. Akombe had to say to Jeff Koinange on JKL live last night.
Yes, we can proceed and have an election on the 26th of October, but it will not be a credible election. It will not be an election that meets the expectations of the Supreme Court as set out, nor meets the basic standards of what you could call a free, fair and credible election.
That's a bit about what she had to say last night. We can listen to another one maybe, just to get some other perspective as well, if we have any of her other comments ready. Do we have that? Okay, let's see if we can get that. If not, I can just quickly engage my guest. Okay, here we go.
Internally, because you have to have enough votes. The second aspect of it is a safety and security issue. I mean, you are aware that 9 days before the last election, our manager in charge of ICT communication, Chris Musando, was brutally murdered. That has never been resolved.
Your brother recently had to leave the country, is that correct?
Yes, my brother had to flee the country because he was getting a lot of threats. I was getting threats, and those threats extended to him.
What sorts of threats?
People were using words of calling him on WhatsApp and sending him messages and telling him, tell your sister to stop asking too many questions, tell your sister to relax about, senior staff being sent home, or you will be sandaled. Go.
Did you feel there were any threats to your life?
Absolutely. I mean, I have never felt the kind of fear that I felt in my own country. I have traveled around the world. I have lived in various countries. So if you get such messages and you've seen your own staff get that and be murdered, you will really be suicidal to think that nothing would happen to you.
Where were these threats coming from? The governing Jubilee coalition or from NASA?
I always see possibilities of threats coming from anybody because sometimes it's opportunistic.
You mentioned that the changes that the opposition were asking for, they haven't been implemented at the Electoral Commission. Can you just expand on that a little bit more for us?
My sense really is that there was a period of time in which we could be able to make meaningful concessions that would have allowed NASA and Jubilee to play on a level playing ground in this election. But that time has lapsed. That time is over.
Rosalind, I'll ask you two pointed questions. Is Chairman Chebukati an able leader of the Commission?
Chairman Chebukati is a very well-meaning person. He has a temperament to be able to be a leader, but he's a leader who is under siege in the Commission.
But is he able? Well-meaning, yes, but is he able?
Well, a little bit about what happened yesterday. Of course, two interviews there, one on JKL, which we'll be playing more comments from, or more, a bit more of those ones a bit later on, and also an earlier interview that she conducted with the BBC in the wee hours of Wednesday morning as well. And I want to find out from my panelists here, just in regards to that, what has her resignation done to the current political narrative, political discussion as well? And Jemima, I can start with you.
Basically, what the impact of Akombe's decision or other statement is to erode whatever credibility we had in IEBC. All along, even after NASA brought all these allegations, majority of Kenyans still had the belief that IEBC had the capacity and were actually looking forward to the 26th elections. But after what Akombe has said, many of us have been left with the doubts as to the capacity of IEBC to conduct a credible elections. It's actually very disturbing, and we feel that the persons running the IEBC and the persons in the secretariat of the IEBC are taking Kenyans for granted. Actually, we could say they are actually committing some kind of criminal acts if they were deliberately sabotaging a credible election.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for you?
Yeah, thank you, Wahiga. You know, I began by saying that if there has been any doubt that there's a problem in IEBC, yesterday that doubt ought to have come to an end, except, of course, our politicians. But between you and me and my sister here, we must appreciate the fact that trust and image takes time to build. What IEBC has gone through with the resignation of Dr. Akombe is that this has dealt a severe blow on the reputation, on the image, and the confidence in IEBC. Those opposing sides may see so, they may choose not to see so. But as you know, this country, we are all polarized on the basis of either Jubilee or NASA or this tribe and other tribe. But we are here to say that where we are now, let's learn something from what has happened. And picking the cue from Dr. Akombe, you saw Chebukati now coming up and giving a statement, which was a stinger. Chebukati has never been so confident in his entire tenure, if you noticed. And you're right, when you say that the statement was bordering on, in fact, each time he completed a statement, the expectation was that he was saying, and now I throw in my towel. Until later on he says, there are people who think, there are some quarters which think that, which are waiting to see that I resign. But that's the easier thing to do. But mark his words at the beginning. He said he's speaking as a father, as a lawyer, and a citizen. And he says he's more interested in what legacy he leaves behind. So this is an emboldened Chebukati. If you listen to Dr. Akombe's statement, when she was prompted by the BBC, I think the BBC reporter, she says that Chebukati is a very well-meaning man. And then the reporter with a bit of cheek says, well-meaning, isn't it? Is he capable? And he says, she is capable, but it will do with a more firmer leadership. And that puts exactly what it is, that Chebukati is not so firm.
There are some that feel that she sort of threw him under the bus, exposed what he has been unable to say up until yesterday.
Yes and no. if you ask me, Dr. Kwamboka is the savior of Chebukati. Look, this is a lady, with all respect, without sounding chauvinistic.
Yes, and I think for Chebukati, on his statement, what disturbed me about his statement is the fact that he was kind of urging the secretariat staff who have been named to resign.
Precisely.
It's like, you simply tell them to resign. You don't come to the public to make a plea on them. It simply means you are not in charge.
Does he have the powers legally, as per what, the IEBC Act, to tell them leave now? The way in which a CEO in a company like this one can say, can write to HR and ask for the dismissal of a certain staff member. How does it work? Is he as powerless as he claims he has been, where the best he can do is to ask them to leave in a press conference?
For me, I assume the chair is an executive chairman. But what we have seen increasingly from this commission is that they do make decisions on everything, such that the chair's hands are tied and he must bring the decision to the commission for them. It's like they even vote. This commission, it's like they vote. Ideally, commissions make unanimous decisions. Most of the time they agree with the chairman, if the decision is made in good faith. But when we have a divided commission, of course, if they believe some of the staff are doing what is in their interest, they will prevent that decision from being taken.
Okay, I want you to pick up from, you were talking about the savior of Chebukati, was what Dr. Akombe. You can pick up from there.
Yes, well, before that, in the IEBC Act and the regulations, there are procedures which have to be followed if you have to fire the staff. Chebukati is not an executive chairman, unfortunately. He is a chairman in the other format.
Okay.
That whatever he has to do, he's basically at policy and strategic level.
So he's almost more of an overseer.
He is an overseer actually. But however, when a decision of firing has to be done, yes, they have the powers, but that has to do through the plenary. And that is the plenary that we are told that it has, if you use Barack Muluka's words, it is a plenary that really is a voting machine with respect to them, going by Dr. Akombe's comments. So that is why Chebukati can do nothing about Ezra Chiloba and the staff. And haven't we seen it? Have we forgotten the memo that Chebukati wrote and then clicked? And poor fellow, he was cornered so much so that in fact the politician was saying, you have no right to fire anybody. You are NASA, and then counter accusations. What I think that Dr. Akombe's resignation has done to Chebukati as a person and as a chairman, it has given him some solace that yes, bolting out of these confines is actually feasible. And that is why he has come out very strongly to give a quick notice to those staff. He says those who have been mentioned adversely should step aside. And he goes further and says that they, as a commission, as a chair, have made decisions which decisions have lost in the plenary, and that ties with what Dr. Akombe says, that it's not really voting on the best of good interests. It is on good faith, but it's voting based on interests, which interests are partisan.
And she was very clear about that.
Correct.
In all the interviews that she did.
Precisely. So what Chebukati then now does, he says, we must have those mentioned adversely stepping aside, and we must then be frank. And he says, I cannot guarantee to Kenyans that this IEBC, as currently constituted, will deliver a credible election. If that is not a bombshell, if that doesn't destroy any possibility that the election will be fair, credible, and in compliance with the Constitution and with the Maraga decision, what more would the country be waiting for?
What more are we waiting for? My goodness. Okay, so I'll surely be introducing Mark Vichati, political analyst, who's also joined us on the program. And I'm not sure if we are ready with some of the statements that were made yesterday by, or part of the statement made by our Wafula Chebukati. If we have that, can we play maybe 2 or 3 of them, just so that our viewers can get the gist of what he had to say yesterday, if they did not have a chance to do so, and then carry on with the discussion in studio. If we have those ready, can we play them now?
When we do things right, we'll get the right things. I know that there are elements who would love nothing more than to hear me announce my resignation at this point. In reality, that will be the easiest thing to do, but we all have to put our country first, and that's why I'm determined to make this country work. Ironically, The very people, the political leaders that are supposed to build the nation have become the greatest threat to the peace and stability of the nation.
All right, shortly I'll be talking to Jakoyo Midiwo, former MP, who is live with us from Kisumu County. I'll be doing that in just a bit, but I can give Mark Bichachi an opening statement. Mark, just briefly tell us your take on where we are as a country in this current political dispensation.
I think as a country, we are now trading solely on mistrust. That is the only currency that seems to be working in this nation. And we're mistrusting everything, everyone, every politician, every institution. Now, the country needs to take time and breathe. We cannot read suspicion into Akombe's resignation, suspicion into Chebukati's statement, because the only result will be that we will have an election that is doubtful, or we will not have an election that is also doubtful. So let's do the patriotic thing. Let's give people an opportunity to do the right thing for this country, to do the right thing for the history of this country, and to do the right thing so that our country can move forward. We cannot keep reading mischief into every single statement. Where are we headed? At some point, truth can only be one. There's only one truth. All of these things we are saying at the same time cannot be true at the same time. It cannot be true that Chebukati is a good guy and a bad guy at the same time. It cannot be true that Akombe is a heroine and a villain at the same time. It can't be true. What is the truth that Kenya needs? Kenya needs to move on. How does it move on? We need to hold an election. We need to hold a national dialogue and not a leaders dialogue. We need to sit down as Kenyans and say, you know what? What do we want for ourselves? This side shows are only going to
hold that election next week Thursday.
Good question.
From where you stand?
You see, the fact of the matter is this. Let me tell you, elections are the easiest things to hold if we stick to what we have agreed as a nation how elections should be held. It is so simple. Any child can do it. But the problem is, for as long as we hold suspicion and take actions that are suspicious, then we won't be able. Are we ready in terms of the physical material, in the physicality of the election? Yes, we are. What is the problem? We have a software issue in this country, and it's called Ujinga, and we have a lot of it within us.
Okay, I'll give my panelists each a chance to respond to what you've just said. You've come with, of course, a different point of view to what they have, and I'll allow them to respond. But I believe we can now join a former Member of Parliament, Jakoyo Midiwo. Good morning, Mheshimiwa. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Maura, I can hear you very loud and clear.
Wonderful. I'm sure you've been monitoring the situation on the national front. First things first, I want to find out from you, what is your take on the resignation of Commissioner Roslyn Akombe and the subsequent statement by Chairperson Wafula Chebukati, where he shared on the struggles of preparing for the upcoming poll?
Well, she did what is obvious. I thought she should have quit long time ago. Wafula Chebukati, I have no problem with what he said, but I thought the salient thing he said in his statement was that he does not want to be the first referee to go down in history as somebody who left Kenya disintegrated into pieces. That is what is going to happen.
Okay.
We have there's nothing they're telling us which is new. You know, once we say you are not going to have elections because elections are already predetermined. You have a country that must move beyond the 26th, and let's talk what is practical. And I think what is practical, there are only two solutions in Kenya. Right now, Kenyans feel very differently about one another. There's too much hate, and it calls for leaders to do the first thing, dialogue. And if we cannot live together, I think it is a very good time for Kenya to begin to discuss peacefully how to live separately. And I think that's where we are headed. From where I sit, I have seen the kind of mayhem that the police mete out on our people. I can tell you that sitting in Kisumu, I see that our people have decided they don't want to live with people who kill them. And I don't think that kind of thing can be forced on human beings. And I think
Okay.
We have to move on.
There are a section of Kenyans, nevertheless, Mheshimiwa, who feel that if President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA leader Raila Odinga sit down and agree on a way forward, then we can get out of this crisis without discussing, what you are talking about in your previous statement. Do you agree with them? Can't we as a nation sit down, find a way to get out of this crisis, which is what many have been calling for?
Yes. Yes, I totally agree with them. But let me say this to the president, who is my friend. Just wake up and give us leadership. We are in a scenario where if people don't talk, you have exactly 7 days to have an illegitimate government. And I want to invite Uhuru Kenyatta to take his dictionary and read the meaning of the word legitimate and illegitimacy and all other things that come with it. That is how countries disintegrate, and we are heading there. I think we are fast running there, and how I wish Uhuru could lower down his guard. But I want to say one thing, Maura. I've heard this morning somebody in Naivasha saying what I've been thinking in one of the TV stations. That I don't think there is a problem Uhuru and Raila talking. Raila has also said he does not want half a bread, half a loaf. We are going for reforms. We want to reform this country once and for all, for the sake of the future. But I feel the problem is really not with Uhuru Kenyatta. I think the problem is Ruto, who has been telling Kenyans, we shall rule you until 2032 and alafu tutaona. What is it that he wants to see beyond 2032? Okay. Does he want to leave us without a country? Okay. Why must we be thinking about self as leaders?
I think isolating one person in a political coalition would be unfair, because you can say that on the NASA side, if one person in NASA says one thing, then you isolate them. I think both sides have been very clear on their stands, and so to isolate one person, especially to their supporters, might not be fair. But my other question is, you are making very strong statements today, which you haven't made in the past. Previously, you are very vocal, Mheshimiwa, but over the last couple of weeks, you've been very quiet. And some would ask, what have you been up to, and why your silence? Whereas in the past, we knew you to be vocal about issues affecting the nation.
Well, Maura, I was a member of Parliament. Parliament is a platform where you talk national issues. Now I am not, so I can only talk when I'm invited, like you have invited me today. That doesn't change my view or views about my country. But there is nothing I am saying today that I have not said before. I did say several times before, including in your own station, that if Kenyans cannot live together, please let us talk on how to live separately, peacefully. That is how civilizations work. Okay. And I am not singling out William Ruto in bad faith, because I seem to see every day the people who are driving us down to war. It is Murkomen, it is Duale, it is William. Look at the things William Ruto said yesterday.
They are not here to defend themselves.
You can invite them.
They are not here to defend themselves, so I'll have to stop you there. Finally, a call by IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati for a meeting at 2:30 p.m. Are you hoping that all presidential candidates will show up? I need to limit you to that question, Mheshimiwa, tafadhali. For the sake of this nation, I need to limit you to that question.
No. If you first of all, you don't call me to a national TV to limit what I can say. I think if people can't talk, Maura, then the media is also contributing in us not expressing ourselves, so as to find solutions as to whether the meeting should go on. Absolutely. Because both sides have taken such a strong stance, and only dialogue. I would be the last one to say we boycott a meeting if it can yield a sensible way forward for our country. I think I would support that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. Next time you're in Nairobi, we will invite you to come and share your views here with us in studio. Thank you for finding time to be with us in our discussion here with my guests here in studio, who I'll give each a chance to just react to what Honorable Midiwo had to say. I can start with you.
Mark first.
Mark first. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, let's...
There are a number of things that...
no, sorry, what I meant is that we were supposed to react.
Okay. I thought you wanted me to hit again.
No, you hit again. Jemima, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Maura. You know we can have elections anytime, as you said. Even Mulolongo elections and Akanu, those were elections. Dictatorship can even take the form of a democracy if the democracy is not guided by the constitution. We have Professor Kovi Ogendo, the late, used to talk about having a constitution without constitutionalism. We have a constitution which we are saying, let's hold the elections, the constitution provides for that. But what are the principles of credible elections under Article 81? First, they must be credible. They must be efficient, they must be transparent, they must be fair, and be seen to be fair. If we have our own chairman and a member of the commission, and many allegations being made against the commission not having capacity to hold credible elections, then we say let's hold elections for the sake of elections. We want to move on. Where are we moving on to? The current environment we are in, we have seen, as Akombe says, even the staff of IEBC are being attacked on the ground. Really, do we want to proceed on elections on that kind of environment? We will not have solved any problem by having elections on 26th. As I said before, we have a president who is sitting under Article 134. It's not like we have a real crisis to hold these elections. That's such that we must do elections for the sake of doing elections. That would be like giving legitimacy to a dictatorship in democracy.
Okay.
And my other issue I take is the Supreme Court, which nullified the elections, nullified them under Article 81. Do you want to say that notwithstanding, let's ignore Article 81, which is the same constitution, which also calls for elections within 60 days after the Supreme Court? We ignore that, let's hold elections, whichever things they have, even if it would just be maybe some few zones, we have elections, 26, we have a president being sworn in, we are okay with a country. Is that really going to solve our problem? That is my challenge to my colleague, that we have elections for the sake of having elections. Is that really what we want as a country?
Dr. Lutalala?
Thank you. I think I agree with Mark. Mark said that elections are the easiest thing to do, and I agree with him absolutely. He also said that we ought to go on with the election. What he did not say is whether we go on with the election with issues as currently stated, or whether they ought to be changed before we go for that election. I didn't get that bit about him. But he's right that election is the easiest thing to do. But more I have a problem with the debate that we are having. And I don't blame ourselves. We're just a victim of what the politicians want in this country. Actually, our politicians determine what discussions we'll have in our media houses, what discussions we'll have in the restaurants, and what discussions we'll have in the villages. Where did the rain start beating us? You know, the politicians are now telling us we must hold the election on 26th because that is what the Constitution says. That is what Justice Maraga and the three justices said. That is true. But it's not the only thing the court ruled. What these politicians have done, they have very tactfully guided the conversation, and now we are no longer talking about the issues that brought us where we are. The issues that brought us where we are that the election on the 8th of August were inflicted with irregularities and illegalities. But let's not just look at this debate as Raila Uhuru debate, Ruto Kalonzo debate, NASA Jubilee. We have innocent Kenyans here who are not interested in whether it's Raila or Uhuru. They are asking questions, and some of them are on the streets, others are not. And they are asking questions. When I voted on the 8th, where did my vote go? And Maraga answered it. He said, you voted, but we are not able to tell whether really what you voted is what was finally announced. And they pinpointed the problems. Have we allowed IEBC to do its work? If we had allowed IEBC to do its work, then today the servers will be wide open. and the issues that NASA is predicating their protests would be resolved. If IEBC was left to work independently, we would know today there are 100 KIMS kits that are alleged to have been stolen prior to the election. The KIMS whose GPRS was switched off on the 5th, we would know who switched them off and where they have.
In your assessment of what Dr. Akombe had to say yesterday, ETC, who is interfering with IEBC?
It is the politicians, Maura. How many times do I have to say this? IEBC is hostage to political interests.
We'll carry on with that. On the other, I'll give you a chance to respond on the other side of this break. We need to take a quick break now. You're watching Citizen Extra live on Citizen TV. Thank you to everyone who is talking to us on 22422. And of course, some of the news that we're getting right now is that meeting at 2:30 p.m., the consultative meeting called by IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati, has regrettably been called off. I can confirm that on their Twitter handle, IEBC have just tweeted that today's 2:30 p.m. meeting with presidential candidates has regrettably been rescheduled. We will update. I don't know what that means. We take a quick break. You're watching Citizen Extra live on Citizen TV. We discuss this development and so much more on the other side. We'll be right back.